This is CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Welcome to the final day of the fall membership campaign here at CityCast Madison. Can you believe it's here? A massive thank you to everyone who's already joined CityCast Madison Neighbors. If you're wanting to join, that's a smart move. You can do that at membership.citycast.fm. And y'all have heard already, we have a big goal to meet. And it's so heartening to say that those of you who've heard the call have stepped up. Right off the bat, I want to thank some new neighbors who just joined. A massive thank you to Carol W., Sarah U., Vanessa O., Cindy A., and John H. It is exciting to see your names. Thank you for your support, and trust there are more thank yous to come in this episode. So if you just signed up, stay tuned for the news and your shout out, you star. All right, one thing that's been on the mind here at CityCast Madison is what it means to live in Madison with purpose. To me, that means supporting local businesses that give back to our community, establishments that share their wealth by hosting benefits and fundraisers, the ones who are helping other businesses get off the ground and succeed. It also means staying informed of the local conversation and news that impacts us all. At CityCast Madison, we're helping you do that. Live in Madison with purpose. Exhibit A, this Friday News Roundup. To be clear, CityCast Madison neighbors help us continue making the show and inviting more of you to engage more deeply with life here. And being informed helps you do that. Plus, you're getting access to the CityCast Neighbors community. You're hearing their names. We're mighty, we're strong, and we need to be a little bit more strong, y'all. We still have dozens of folks to join up. We need you to join. So if you're on the fence, now's your moment. It's the last day. Join us as a neighbor by visiting membership.citycast.fm. And I'm going to say this one more time with passion, especially for you lovely folks in the back. I know you're lovely, you're listening, you're curious. Please sign up today, because during this campaign, you will get the Neighbors Make Madison tote bag, and I don't want you to feel like you missed out. If you want that, sign up. It's $10 a month or $100 a year. Your support is invaluable to us. So join us at membership.citycast.fm. Okay, on to the show. Today, it's the Friday News Roundup, and the federal government is shut down. New local names are officially in the race for state office, and an institution of a restaurant was at risk and has been saved. Intrigued? All right, we're getting into it. Joining me to get into this week's news is our executive producer, Haley Sperling. Hey, Haley.
Hi, Bianca. Color me intrigued. I want to know what's going on this week.
And our newsletter editor, Rob Thomas. Hey, Rob.
Ooh, I get to be intriguing this week. I'm so excited.
Yeah, you've got the story with the intrigue. But frankly, it's all pretty fascinating, including when the government shuts down. What's going on? Haley, you've got the word on that.
Yeah, fascinating is one word. I think others would probably say annoying or frustrating. But basically what happened, federal lawmakers in D.C. were unable to come to an agreement this week to continue funding the government. So what happens now? Like we said, the government shuts down. In Wisconsin, this move affects roughly 18,000 civilian federal workers, some of whom will be furloughed and others who will be asked to simply work without pay. I want to note that this situation is subject to change very quickly, right? We know the news moves fast, people can make changes, agreements can be reached. But as we're recording this, CNN reports that the shutdown is expected to last at least through Friday, and perhaps longer. So this is not just going to be a few hours of a situation like we've seen in the past. This is actually the fourth government shutdown under President Donald Trump's tenure. The last one was a record-setting 35 days long, stretching from the end of 2018 into 2019. Some government officials who are deemed quote unquote essential will still operate during the shutdown. You're still going to get your mail. TSA will still pat you down. We're not just walking right onto planes anymore. And Social Security checks will continue to flow. So when it comes to measuring the impact in Wisconsin, it's still a little too soon to say what's actually happening. The State Department of Workforce Development told the State Journal that they are monitoring the situation. So it's kind of just everyone's waiting and seeing what's going on. Again, according to the State Journal, the largest federal employer in the state is the Department Department of Veteran Affairs, which operates the healthcare facility, the William S. Middleton Memorial Veterans Hospital here in Madison. So again, it's still too soon to say what the exact implications of this shutdown are, but many state and local organizations that rely on federal funding are bracing for impact. At the county level, Dane County Executive Melissa Agard announced Wednesday that she plans to introduce a hiring freeze in light of this shutdown, but also kind of just happened to be a timing situation. According to News 3, she said, quote, "Even before this shutdown, we were staring down difficult fiscal realities. Costs for services and infrastructure continue to climb while revenues remain flat. Now, with federal dysfunction creating additional uncertainty, it would be reckless to continue with business as usual." So it's a lot of hazy, unclear situations. Have you guys been hearing anything, people talking about the shutdown? Like, what's the take in your guys' arenas?
I'm just thinking about having been a former federal worker and facing these sort of situations where it's like months of pressure. Like, are we going to pass this? This is not a new thing that happens. It's an unfortunate, political playing piece. And when we saw such a long shutdown during Trump's first administration, it's just a shaky instability that doesn't feel great, especially for, the many federal workers.
Yeah, I think the word, like you said, is just uncertainty. You don't know who's going to be affected. You don't know how they're going to be affected. And you don't know how long it's going to last. It sounds like right now there's not really any negotiating going on in Washington, D.C. about this. And I don't think anybody can really predict how it's going to turn out.
It's so early, too soon to tell. Like I said, this shutdown, it's going to last at least through today. And this all comes down to disagreements over Medicaid cuts. So Democrats, they want to undo these large scale cuts to Medicaid that Republicans made over the summer. And they also want to permanently extend tax subsidies that millions of Americans use to purchase insurance on the federal marketplace. One thing that's interesting, though, is that one of our senators, Ron Johnson, actually introduced a bill recently that would end government shutdowns forever. So he wants to basically convert the government, bring us over to a multi-year spending cycle and avoid the, quote, constant drama over appropriations. So he's kind of got a plan laid out. He put a column in the Wall Street Journal about this that I thought was kind of interesting, basically saying that we should have these safeguards in place so that government doesn't have to shut down, so that we can continue operating at previous spending levels while these kinks sort of get worked out. But that's one thing that's sort of up in the air. Again, I want to circle back to the county real quick because, like I mentioned, this hiring freeze was announced during the shutdown, but it's not necessarily a reaction to the shutdown, right? I don't want to necessarily paint those two together. The county is facing a massive budget deficit. I'm talking $31 million to be exact. So these conversations were happening long before the shutdown even happened. At the city level, Madison's 2025 operating budget includes about $50 million in federal grants, which represents roughly 6% of the city's overall budget. The city finance director, Dave Schmidtke, told the State Journal that direct city services won't be impacted in the immediacy. So again, they're kind of just saying it really depends on how long this shutdown lasts, is if we will see effects or not. And Madison school district officials have said the same thing. At the UW-Madison level, the most heavily impacted by the shutdown will be researchers. In a letter sent out to the UW community, campus officials said that they have been preparing for a shutdown scenario for a while. They've been preparing for many different shutdown scenarios. They said, quote, "Though this event is concerning for our campus operations and research enterprise, campus leaders have been preparing for this possibility over recent weeks and have planned for multiple scenarios, including the risk that shutdown lasts for multiple weeks. One big note is that student aid should not be impacted." So there's so many questions here. I wanted to just kind of give you guys the basics because we're really just still waiting on these details. We're waiting on clarity. The big question is over how long is the shutdown going to last, because that is when things get hazy. So it is a waiting game and we are awaiting.
Yeah, I was just thinking the city, the county, and especially the university have learned over the past 8 months not to count on federal funding. So they may be better prepared now to weather any cuts than they might have been previously just because things have already been so uncertain and chaotic?
So true, unfortunately.
The thing that's sticking with me about Ron Johnson putting forward a bill like that is the fact that these federal shutdowns are very expensive. The one we were referencing, the December 2018 to January 2019, the longest one, that cost taxpayers $11 billion. So this has all of these other consequences, right, in terms of the federal workforce and services and what keeps going. But it also, it's financial. So I guess that makes sense. It's certainly a waiting game. I wish us the best, and I hope that the federal government gets their act together and comes together for what we need. Before we get into any more news, we're going to take a quick break. Are you ready to Vogue? Tickets are available now for St. Vinny's On the Runway, St. Vinny's thrift store's first ever fashion show. I can barely contain my excitement. The date is Wednesday, October 15th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the beautiful Madison Youth Arts Center. The show is a benefit to raise funds for St. Vinny's charitable programs like their food pantry, pharmacy, and housing support. This show is also celebrating 100 years of impact for Vinny's, as 2025 is St. Vinny's centennial. At On the Runway, there will be a pop-up shop, historical exhibit viewing, and a style show. Tickets are $25, but don't wait because there's only a limited supply. And you might know the MC, Krista Hatcher, afternoon host at Z104 Madison, and John Cobb, Associate Director of Retail Operations at the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, Madison. So what are you waiting for? Get your tickets today. Visit svdpmadison.org/event/Saint-Vinny's-on-the-runway.
Hey there, Haley Sperling here, executive producer of CityCast Madison. You know from listening to this show that we love Madison, but the only reason that this show works is because of you. You tune in because you're genuinely invested in the local conversation. If I had to guess, you're probably someone who shops local whenever possible. You might be the go-to friend for local gossip, and I wouldn't be surprised if you carry your library card around everywhere you go. If this sounds like you, I'd like to invite you to join CityCast Madison Neighbors. Our membership program is designed to help folks like you who care about our city engage more deeply with life here. You'll get invites to members-only events, our curated weekly roundup of the best things to do in the city, and now through October 3rd, you'll get an awesome tote bag that says Neighbors Make Madison, because it's true. You can become a CityCast Madison neighbor for just $10 a month or $100 a year at membership.citycast.fm. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm.
All right, we're back. But before we get into our next story, it's the last day of the fall membership campaign. Y'all, I want to thank some new members, Sarah W., Scott H., Mish B.A., Lynn W., and Crystal S. Y'all just joined up, and we so appreciate it. Thank you for hearing the call.
Yes.
Woo! Yay, new neighbors. We love you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, and we love it when you write about why you joined. Then we have even more to share. Crystal wrote us a note about why she joined, saying, quote, "My wife and I are relocating next week to Madison from North Carolina to work at UW Health. We have fallen in love with Madison, and we're closing on our home next week. Can't wait to explore more of this amazing city with our dogs and on our e-bikes. We love all the information that you share. We want to learn more about what's happening and places to go, see, and where to dine. We also love to support local businesses." Crystal, you're in the right place. Y'all sound perfect for Madison.
I am so obsessed that they are not even here. They haven't even officially moved to Madison, but they're already listening to CityCast Madison and they're already supporting us. It's just so freaking cool. This is actually kind of a recurring theme with people who tell us, why they listen to the show. We're kind of big with the Madison newbies, and hey, we love to help you out, whether you've been here for 10 minutes, 10 days, 10 years. If you're not here yet, we're here to help you out, right?
Yeah, I think that's really cool. One day this week, I got messages from somebody who just moved here and then somebody who moved here 26 years ago. And like me, you live in a city a long time, you end up kind of going the same 3 or 4 restaurants, shopping in the same 3 or 4 stores. And I think one thing we're really good at on the show and in the newsletter is introducing people to new places to go, new businesses to shop at. So, I mean, if you've used this show to learn more about the city, consider becoming a monthly supporter of the show. Go to membership.citycast.fm.
It's really easy to join, and then you immediately get all the perks, like access to our show ad-free or the events newsletter, which will be in your inbox each week.
Yeah, it's so awesome. There's great perks. And like Bianca mentioned earlier in the show, we got a tote bag. It's $10 a month, $100 a year. Head to membership.citycast.fm to learn more.
Yes, and please do join us as a neighbor, y'all, because we're going to be bringing you news like this. We're going to get right into our next story, turning to some state government election news. I've got the beat on that. Missy Hughes, the recent former head of Wisconsin's Economic Development Agency, officially announced she is in the race for Wisconsin's next governor. Hughes is a Democrat who served as a public administrator under Tony Evers for the past 6 years, and a couple weeks ago, she stepped down, and now we know why. She's also former general counsel and chief mission officer for Organic Valley, major company there, and is angling herself as someone who's rejecting divisive politics and focused on education. You might have learned about her possible run if you listened to our Tuesday episode, my conversation with Milwaukee area political commentators and podcast host stars Kristen Bry and Steve Scafidi. We talked about the stakes of the governor's race and the candidate pool at this moment, so definitely go back and listen to it. Kristen Bry actually predicted Hughes would jump into the race, which has now come to fruition. I highly recommend going back and listening, and we'll drop that link in our show notes. But y'all, have you heard much about Missy Hughes prior to this bid announcement?
I had heard nothing about her until that interview with Kristen Bry, but I thought it was so interesting because, Bianca, you had asked Kristen, like, hey, who else do you think is going to be throwing their hat in the ring? And she didn't miss a beat immediately. She was like, Missy Hughes, she's coming in soon. And then it was literally 2 days later, she announced that she was running. I think what's really interesting to me about Missy Hughes is that she's a businesswoman, and I think she's really positioning herself as sort of the political outsider here, which is interesting to me because we have seen that work obviously very, very well for Donald Trump, 2-time president. But will that work in Wisconsin for a governor's race? I don't know. So very curious to see how that goes for her.
And her resume really speaks for itself. I mean, she's an outsider, but she's done a lot, like you said, Bianca, in business. So it'll be super interesting.
Yeah, she's got the business component and then also the legal background. So she's a lawyer, being general counsel. But she has been a public administrator, so she has been in the state. She has been a part of the state. But, politics is all about how you're branding. I do want to turn to talk about the fact a big takeaway from Tuesday's episode was that the candidate pool is really open to newcomers and hopefuls without true full state profiles. So if you haven't heard of Missy Hughes, that might not be surprising. That's actually how a lot of the candidates are. One of the standout Democrats that many folks in Madison have heard of, even though she hasn't run a full statewide race, is State Representative Francesca Hong, who is a former guest of the show. She's the former owner of Morris Ramen. She's a chef. She is out trying to run for governor. And because of that bid, that means her seat in the 76th Wisconsin district, which covers the majority of the Madison Isthmus and parts of North Madison, is now an open race. This Tuesday, former Madison Alder Juliana Bennett announced she will run for the seat, which is an exciting development. Already in the race is current Alder Dina Nina Martinez Rutherford, which, as we talked about on the show, was an exciting development. These are two very well-known local names, and they sound like they want to step up to the next level in state government. So I want to shout out a great piece from another independent news outlet. We're talking about the importance of independent news. Tone Madison, they have a fantastic write-up on Bennett's announcement with an interview with her. We'll toss that in our show notes, where Bennett says she plans to be a, quote, real agitator in a space that tries to constrict innovation. which to me sounds like stepping into similar shoes if you're looking to take over Francesca Hong's seat. Y'all, what do you think of Juliana Bennett entering the race and the situation we have with both her and Nina Martinez Rutherford running?
I'm super stoked. I mean, it's always exciting to see familiar Madison names kind of climbing the political ladder. We've seen Juliana. She was an alder, both in District 8, the very student-heavy district in Madison, and District 2. Nina, our alder out in District 15. I mean, we saw her literally drop out of a race and still get elected. So this is really heating up to be one to watch. I'm super excited about it. We're definitely going to have to get both of these incredible people on our show. They've already both been on our show, so they're solid from that point of view, right? But yeah, this is definitely going to be one to watch. Very curious to see how this plays out.
Yeah, that's my takeaway, that we're kingmakers here at CityCast Madison. If you come on the podcast,
we make you king.
Skyrocketing success.
I do, though, appreciate your point that we did have them on the show. I got a chance to talk to each of them twice about different components of their leadership at the city level. And I just want to say, I have a lot of respect for both of these women.
Absolutely.
They're clear public servants. They're very good organizers. And yeah, the fact that they're looking to kind of take that political prowess to the next level is exciting. And my next thought is anyone else going to jump in? Is the field crowded? Because they've got a lot to offer these two candidates, for sure.
Yeah, very curious to see if anyone else decides to come in or if a conservative candidate will try to come in. I mean, yes, this is Madison, and it does, Bianca, you mentioned that this district covers much of the Isthmus, North and East Side Madison. So those are pretty liberal strongholds. But, every now and then we do see conservative candidates kind of throw their hats in the ring to just offer a different perspective. So I am curious if anyone will try and, fill that place in this race.
All right. Well, we've done plenty of news on our state races. We are going to carry on and get into more news around a beloved restaurant. But before we go there, let's take a quick break. We're back with the Intrigus news, the Intrigus. We talked about intrigue at the beginning of the conversation, and I'll stop being a fool. Rob, what's the story?
Yeah, we're talking about the very intriguing Imperial Garden, which has been a staple of Madison's dining scene since 1981. This is the Chinese restaurant that's on West University Avenue and Allen Boulevard. Whenever I'm driving west, that's my welcome to Middleton sign, basically. When I see Imperial Garden, I know I'm crossing the border from Madison into Middleton. Have you guys been to Imperial Garden?
Yeah, I love that you said that, Rob, because it's like a portal.
Yeah.
Honestly, it really is the marker because it's on such accessible roads. But yes, I have been. And I went earlier on when I was a badger at UW, with sort of some academic advisor type folks. And it was their favorite restaurant. And they knew all of the people working there. And it's very big. It's spacious. It provides an Imperial experience.
When we first moved to Madison in 1999, we would go there a couple times. It was on the other side of town. But yeah, classic, old school, sit down Chinese American restaurant with all the staples you want and a really large, like you said, large, elegant space. I'm sure they've had, banquets and private receptions and things there. So it really has become like an institution in that part of town. So the Wisconsin State Journal reported that Imperial Garden was imperiled by a proposed development at that intersection, like so much development that's going on in town right now. And the development would have replaced both the restaurant and the Asian Garden Market next door. The development, which was called the Imperial, I guess it's kind of like when they build a housing development and they name it after the trees that were torn down to make room for the houses.
Wow. What the?
It hurts just the right amount. It's like,
That's right.
I get what you're going for here, but it also feels a little rude. Yeah.
Remember what you used to be able to get here? Yeah. So anyway, the Imperial would have included a 10-story condo building and a 5-story apartment building, 195 units, 3 commercial spaces, and that would be suited to retail stores and a restaurant. But the developer had expressly said that Imperial Garden would not be that restaurant because the smoke and the cooking smells from the restaurant wouldn't be compatible with this new residential space. So that did not sit well, as we said, with the longtime fans of Imperial Garden. And people at the restaurant told the Wisconsin State Journal that they got a lot of calls from people who were worried. And apparently the developer got a lot of calls as well. It was reported this week by the State Journal again that they amended their development plan to include both the restaurant and the grocery store. So, I mean, I think the idea would be it would be Imperial Garden, but in that new residential space somehow. I mean, I think that's kind of a win. You know, I mean, we hear so much all over town about places getting torn down and redeveloped, and obviously a city needs to grow, but we lose these old institutions. We talked a couple of weeks ago on the podcast about Portobello downtown and how that might be going the way of the dodo to make room for another big student housing development. So I don't know what you guys think, but I thought it was kind of heartening to see a developer actually listening to the people in the neighborhood.
I mean, I think, hey, if there's one thing Madisonians and I guess Middletonians, I mean, if there's one thing that we're going to do, it's going to make a call, right? And so clearly people showed up, they showed out. I mean, I remember seeing like on Facebook and on Reddit and just various internet spaces, people were very upset about the prospect of losing Imperial Garden. So as you said, Rob, I think it is quite heartening that people, one, stood up for an institution that they love and appreciate, but also too that the developers took it into consideration and were like, okay, we will listen. I guess the journalist in me, or just, you know, the curious logistical person in me is just like, if they didn't think Imperial Garden was going to fit into the building in the first place, how are they going to rectify that situation? I'm not a developer. I don't know.
It feels like one of those things that what changes it's going to cost more. You know, what changes, there's always people like, we can't do this. It's not in our plans. But if they said, oh, I guess we can, they always could have.
Sure.
But the exact details of that, yeah, obviously, that's something to be curious about.
And the other thing is this is still just a proposal. So they've got to win the support of the community, and of course, the local government. Most importantly, that property is only zoned for a maximum of 5 stories. So they've got to get it rezoned to allow an extra 5 stories. You know, part of it, I assume, is building some goodwill and not having the community against them when they go before government officials and to get those changes. So I think the next step is that there could be a public hearing on that rezoning on October 28th. But at least in the near future, you can still get your Imperial Garden food.
Yeah. And, you know, to share kind of my reaction to this turnaround story, I think it's in the best interest of the developer. You know, I feel like if you know what's good for you, as someone who eats Chinese food like once a week, this spot really is, like you said, a decades-long institution. I think that people are starting to feel emotional about the change that's coming to Madison. And when you like the Portobellas that you're talking about, these places that have character, that have years of love and energy around them just being replaced, like even in Middlesex, like on the outskirts, you know, like right there, like what isn't up for being bought, you know, like
Right.
At which point do we cross a line of, you know, having lost our character? It's an ongoing conversation. But, you know, we're in the final days of the fall campaign, and we're trying to build an institution here at CityCast Madison. You've heard us say it, and you all out there have been coming through and joining our neighbor program. And we want to thank you. I'm going to share a few more names, as promised, of new neighbors who just came in. A big thank you to Christy W., Catherine PM, Amy G., Jen B., and Matthew Z. Thank you. You all are incredible. We cannot do this show without your support.
Yes, again, shouting out our love and support for all of our members. We appreciate you guys. And a special shout out to these new members, everyone who just joined. You guys get to shout out whoever and whatever you want in Madison, in our newsletter and in the podcast. You know, like, do you have a favorite small business that you want people to know about? Is there a cool event that you want folks to go to? Use your power of the shout out. It is very exciting. We'll talk about it here on the podcast. Rob writes about it in the newsletter.
Yeah, I feel like this is like the hidden gem of all our cool perks is these neighbor shout outs, because you can do as many of these as you want if you're a CityCast Madison neighbor. So like, as you said, could be a business, could be an event, could be a nonprofit, could be just a really cool person who makes the city a little better. So if you're already a member, check your email. We send a private link out. I also put it in the events newsletter almost every week, and it's really easy.
Yeah, and speaking of shout outs, I've got to shout out you, Rob, for some sterling work you've done in the Madison Minutes newsletter. We got some excitement there. Earlier this week, Rob put a quiz in the Madison Minutes newsletter that clearly struck a chord with folks. Rob, could you tell us about what that was?
Yeah, and this was actually Haley's idea, which is a great idea. I've done these fun quizzes in the Madison Minutes newsletter every couple of weeks or so. And this one was on how well you know Madison streets. And so it was as simple as like, how do you spell Patterson Street? How do you spell Old Sauk Road? And gave people choices. It was super fun.
Yeah, I mean, truly, people care about our streets and are fascinated with them. Like when we had a conversation highlighting the person who does the bus routes, like the sort of like saying the different names, Patterson, Ingersoll, folks really responded to that. So I'm not shocked. I love it. I am not alone there. We actually got a voicemail from a reader, Lauren, about it. Let's take a listen.
Hey, CityCast Madison team. This is Lauren from the Eastmoreland neighborhood. I just took the little Madison Streets quiz in the newsletter, and I just wanted to say that a few weeks ago, my mind was blown when I found out that most of the streets in downtown Madison are named after Constitution signers. I thought that all of these streets were named after people who were significant to Wisconsin history. But I guess at the point in time where Madison was developed, there wasn't enough history to name it after, maybe? Either way, I Googled signers of the Constitution, and every single one, I'm like, oh my gosh, Mifflin, that was a person who signed. So anyway, that was just a fun little mind-blowing piece of trivia. And fun quiz. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, team. Bye.
Not a lot of history from folks who actually lived here. It would be cool if streets were named from Native American names. But yeah, this is such a cool thing.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with this for so many reasons, but mainly because that, we wrote about something in the newsletter that inspired Lauren to go out and learn more about our city and get connected with Madison and learn a little bit of history. And, it just sparked this bit of curiosity in her. And I love being a conduit for that. I love being a place where we get to let people exercise this curious mind and get to know what else is going on in our city and get to know some history too. I don't know. It's just this would just felt like a really cool moment for us.
Yeah, that was really fun about writing the quiz is these are literally the streets we drive on every day and you don't think about it. And it's just all about, connecting to Madison and whether it's the people or the places or what's going on or what we need to worry about or what we need to celebrate. That's really our bread and butter here at CityCast, right?
Yeah, and the feelings of sparking curiosity, it's happening for us on a regular basis. I learned so much from these practices and, the quizzes that you do, Rob. It truly is really exciting. And if folks don't know, our city's actually named after James Madison. So there's more to people looking to the constitutional founders.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're building these meaningful relationships between people and the city, right? They're sparking this curiosity. They're digging in. They're leaning into the places that we live. And, CityCast Madison, that's really what we're trying to do. And that's also, really what we're trying to do with our membership program, our CityCast Madison neighbors. We help connect people with the city of Madison and help build those meaningful bridges and relationships. We have, Rob's mentioned his weekly events newsletter, helps people plan events for the week and helps people go to these different businesses and whatnot that they wouldn't have normally gone to. I can't even count how many times people have written in and said oh, thank you for highlighting this event. I had no idea this was going on, but it was so cool. And I went and I met someone and now we're friends, I love that kind of stuff. I love when the virtual becomes reality and when we can, again, just build meaningful relationships.
Totally. And, speaking on the podcast side of things, like I cannot go out into the city without people coming up to me and being like, hey, you had this conversation and it literally it opened up a new realm. I was at the YWCA Racial Justice Summit and I was sitting by myself momentarily. And one of you out there, a listener, came up to me and said, hey, I just want to fangirl really quick. I'm really sorry to do this during your lunch, but I really love your show. And I just heard of the episode that you did with the folks from the UW-Madison lab who are researching Black stories in Madison and trying to archive them, the Soul Folk Collective. It made such an impression on me that I sought out their session at the summit so I could learn more. And it's like those moments where we really recognize the power of our work and how connected y'all are truly listening to this podcast and the way you're truly paying attention every morning in your inbox to the Madison Minutes newsletter. You are strengthening our work every day, and we're trying to strengthen your experience in this city and grow your community. So being a neighbor, being a part of our work, I will just say it's a privilege. It's a privilege for me to do the work, and the people who are neighbors have told us it's a privilege to be a part of the program. And we're going to have lots of events where, you can come and hang out with us and get to learn more about the city, literally get out into the city together. So yeah, just thank you all who are neighbors. And if you're thinking about joining, I hope that you do, because we want to continue this work for years to come.
That's your closing argument, counselor, right there. Yeah.
Oh.
I love it.
I want to make another argument, as lawyers do. Just that this team is so beautiful. Haley Sperling, our executive producer, Rob Thomas, our newsletter editor, our producer, Jade Isiri Ramos, working with y'all is a gift. You're so intelligent, you're so clever, you're so passionate, and truly have different touches on the city. Jade produced that program that we're talking about, the episode with the Soul Folk Collective, and just did it with so much passion and recognizing the importance of telling diverse stories and telling them well. And all of us care really deeply about each product we do. It's a daily, so we got to keep it moving. We've done almost 700 episodes already, which is crazy. Probably thousands of newsletters. We put a lot of love and work into this. So, I just want to shout you guys out and let other people know what they're investing in when they invest in CityCast Madison.
Oh, well, I appreciate you too, Bianca. I mean, the work that you put into this show and everything. I mean, Bianca, if you guys don't even know, Bianca edits the weekly membership newsletter that we've been talking about. Everyone here on the team touches so much, and we're all putting in so much work to, again, help build these bridges in our community, help get people informed on what's going on in Madison, and, have these really awesome conversations, whether they're heartening and exciting about a new restaurant or whether we're being critical about, the Willie Street study that's going on. There's so much about our city that we get to talk about, and it really is such a privilege for us. And this membership campaign, like previous ones, it's just been so fulfilling. It's so heartwarming and encouraging to see new neighbors flooding in every single day to come in and say, yes, I support your work and I want you to continue doing what you're doing. So thank you. A really, really, really big thank you to everyone who has joined this week in this membership campaign, and those of y'all who have been with us from the start. We know there are literally hundreds of you. It means so, so much to us. So thank you.
And truly, if you want to get in on this and support local journalism, support this team, support our work, you still have time. And to get a tote bag, not that much time. This is the last moment for you to get this campaign's tote bag. Head to membership.citycast.fm. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. All right, y'all. Thanks for rounding up the news with me this week. As always, Haley Sperling, it is a pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure and a joy. It's been something.
You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Yes.
Rob Thomas, you as well. Thank you so much.
This was great, Bianca.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin, your host. We're produced by Jade Isiri Ramos with help this week from Noah Snyderman and Catherine Gorman. Haley Sperling is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. Additional music this week by Lex Kipp and Alex Maz from Triple Scoop Music via Getty Images. Rob Thomas is our newsletter editor. You can always get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes. And don't forget, if you could, you can support this show and get great perks by becoming a CityCast Madison neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. We still need 40 more people to sign up to meet our goal. We believe in you. You can do it. Join us as a neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone you like to talk about current events with? You know, a friend. All right, see you back here Monday morning with more stories from around the city. Until then, have a great weekend, and thanks for listening.